Okay, we can just let people in. I'll record in my. Okay, people are getting in. So maybe we can just start the seminar. And welcome everyone. Thank you so much taking this time in the evening and come to attend this information session. And so this event is one of the CCACC Health Center's talks, and we always have a focus on the needs that our community have. So as you can see, we are a community clinics, community health center located at Gaithersburg, Maryland. And we have a village program. So the purpose is to promote the overall well-being of our community member, especially those in more needs. So we have two focus at this point. We want to provide support for families with kids, with children's with special needs, and then older adults, or actually any adult with dementia. So we want to provide support for the caregivers. And if you are following, you know that in the past we have several events, one or two events every year. So these are very well received by the community with needs. So we have this in last year, breaking barriers. So if you miss this one, I would encourage you to really go back to our YouTube channel to listen to the presentation. In this presentation, Lisa Lorraine gave out a lot of resources in Montgomery counties, and also tell us what you need to know if you have children or anyone in your family has special needs or disability. So the session is in recording, so you can visit it. I will put the link in the chat later on, so you can go back to it. And so I can tell you a little bit about CCACC Health Center. I know as a parent, I do know that we all say that it takes a village to raise a child, right? But when you have a kids with special needs, you take the whole universe. It's just never enough. So as a community clinic, we try to put things in place and trying to help out as much as we can. So nowadays, CCACC expand a lot. So we actually have a CCACC Academy that provides aftercare and summer camps. And also we recently purchased this Queen's Orchard Swimming and Tennis Club. And these are the contact information. I always believe if you run out of things to do with your kids, always take them out to the outside to do exercise, to just enjoy the time together. So these are good place to bring them. And also I am trying to look for a resource to develop some therapeutic exercise activity for children with special needs. So that's in development. So stay tuned with us. The CCACC Health Center, we do have other supportive service for family with special needs children. So one of them is family support. So we provide counseling, and we do have a psychiatrist and psychologist. Myself is a licensed social worker. So we do provide different level of support if the family needs it. And we also have a rehab center. We have PT and OT service in-house. So like I said, as a parent with a child with autism, I always want to put resources together. So we are trying to put a program together to provide training for caregivers. And also we would try to put together educational and enrichment service in place so that we have more resource, we have more support. So these are some of the disease supporting workshops, self-management workshops, and I would recommend building better caregivers program for if you need some support. I know how hard it is to care for a child with a lot of needs. So right now we are having this program for family with dementia patient. Towards the end of this year, we are going to give out one for children with special needs. I mean, caregivers who are taking care of children with special needs. Okay, with that, I'm so happy today that we can put this seminar together. It's very valuable resource that we have. Thank you, Francis, to really take the time and talk to us. This is a must-know topic, right? We need to know the system and how do we navigate or even advocate for our children. So Francis is an educational attorney, and she was studied with being an educator, so she knows the system. She knows how to talk to the school system. So I'll have Francis to talk more about, introduce yourself, and then we'll learn a lot from this seminar. So towards the end, you can actually type your question in the chat Q&A session, and we go to that those questions towards the end of the seminar. Okay, with that, I would love to pass that. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think, okay, there we go.
Okay, I'll stop my share, then you can have your.
There we go.
Great.
And okay, that did not, do you all see the my slide deck correctly?
Yes.
Okay, good. It shows different on my screen. Advocating for children with special needs, the IDEA timelines. There are a lot of timelines that the schools must follow, and these are federal timelines. And a lot of times schools aren't following them or they don't know. So I wanted to make sure that parents know their rights and know what should be happening. So to start, I wanted to talk a little bit about me. So what is stress-free IEP? How did that come about and what's my story? So as Kate shared, I am a former educator. I did my undergrad in early childhood and my master's in special education. I was in the classroom in all different levels, elementary school for 7 years. And then I was special education coordinator for 2 years. At that point, I felt like I wasn't making the difference that I wanted to make anymore. And so I decided to go to law school. After about 1.5 years, I was working in Florida. I moved back up to Maryland, where I started my law firm, Schefter Law PA. And shortly after that, I coined the phrase stress-free IEP. My mission statement, our firm's purpose, is to empower families with the knowledge and resources needed to help bring peace and harmony to their home. So we're all about educating and teaching families how to advocate for their own children. My team, our team at the firm includes myself, and I am the attorney and advocate. I also have Anne, who is an education advocate on my team that assists as well, and my assistant Shane, who answers the phone and does the intake and lots of other things. And that right now is our team. It's a little small. We are growing. And so where to start? A lot of times parents don't know. They know something's going on with their child. They know something's wrong, or something's just, the child's not developing correctly, or you see your child struggling, and what do you do? How do you start? Because sometimes the schools don't see it, or sometimes the schools just don't start the process. So the first thing you do is you write a letter to the principal or the local special education administrator, and you request a meeting. And in the letter, you say that I'm concerned about my child. I would like to start the special education process to look at whatever your suspected disability is. So this could be specific learning disabilities. It could be speech and language, other health impaired, which is the ADHD. Whatever your concern is, that goes in the letter. After you write the letter, the school has 30 days to come to the table and discuss your concerns and determine whether evaluations are needed. So you've written the letter, it's time to prepare for the meeting. The school has scheduled the meeting, you're ready to go. It's important to know what evaluations you are requesting and why. So a comprehensive psychoeducational evaluation includes your cognitive and academic achievements. You always want your academic achievements because you want to see what level your child is, and this is a good basis for if your child qualifies for the IEP development. You can also ask for behavior checklists if that's a concern. For speech and language, there's expressive and receptive language, there's articulation, there's pragmatic language, there's lots of different areas. So it's important to make sure you know what areas, disability area you think your child would qualify for, and then request the specific evaluations for that area. So at the initial meeting, you all sit down. Sometimes they call it analysis of existing data. The school pulls report cards. They might do an observation. They come to the table and they talk to you about, this is what we see, this is what we think. The school's either going to agree to evaluate or they're not going to agree to evaluate. So if the school agrees to evaluate, the school has 60 days to complete the evaluation and come to the table to review the report and discuss eligibility. So 60 days, not to just complete the evaluation, it's also for the evaluator to write the report, provide the parents the report before the meeting, and come to the table with the meeting. If the school at that meeting does not agree to evaluate and says, no, we don't think your child's going to qualify for special education, your child's grades are too good, or whatever reason, at that point, you want to ask the school for an independent educational evaluation. That is that the school will pay for you to get a private evaluation. Oftentimes schools will say, whoa, wait, no, we don't want to do that, because obviously the county doesn't want to pay for it. However, in your procedural safeguards, when you ask for an independent educational evaluation, the school has two possibilities of their response. They can either grant the evaluation, or they can technically file due process against you to prove that their evaluation is valid. Well, if you're at your initial meeting, they haven't done an evaluation. So oftentimes when you request an independent educational evaluation, after them not doing it, the school will then change their mind. No, it's okay. We'll do the evaluations. So it's a little trick to get them to do the evaluation. The other thing you want to request at this meeting is a prior written notice, a PWN. This is also in your procedural safeguards. IDEA requires that if the school refuses to take any action in special education, and refusing to evaluate is taking an action, then they have to do a prior written notice, which explains that parents requested evaluation. However, school denied request because, and they need to go into detail of why they denied the request. So again, this sometimes causes the issue of the school saying, oh, wait a minute, this parent knows what they're talking about. It's better to just evaluate. So at the initial meeting, if you get the school to agree to evaluate, the next step in the process is an eligibility meeting. And so that's when you come to the table to review the evaluation to determine if your child meets the requirements and is found eligible for special education. So before that meeting, the school is supposed to give you 10 days notice for that meeting, unless you as the parent to waive. This doesn't mean the school gets to say, oh, well, we can only meet on Friday. You need to meet this Friday or we're not going to be able to do it. This means the school and the parents are trying to find a date. Oh, look, we all agree Thursday works for us. We know it's less than 10 days, but that's okay because that's what we found to work. 5 days before the meeting, the school should be providing all reports. Now, IDEA says that reasonable time, but Maryland law, Comar, says that it's 5 days before the meeting or reasonable time, because parents can't actively participate in the meeting if they don't have the reports to review ahead of time, to know what they say and to fully digest. If you've ever been to a meeting of reviewing reports, the psychologist or the speech therapist or the OT, they kind of speak the language and go real quick through everything and then just say to the parents, you understand, right? Which I don't know about you all, but I can't digest everything that fast, even with all of my education training and all of my law training. I need to read it and fully digest and sit with it. So it's making sure that you get your reports before the meeting. The potential outcomes of the meeting. Your child is found eligible for special education services under whichever disability code it is. And then the school has 30 days to come to the table to do a draft IEP. The timeline comes back to that also. They need to give you 10 days notice before the IEP meeting, and 5 days before the actual meeting, they need to give you a draft IEP. A lot of times what I'll do is at the eligibility meeting, once your child's found eligible, then ask for, okay, well, let's look at our calendars now and get it scheduled. Because I don't know about you all, but my calendar's full quickly and school's calendars get filled quickly. And if you wait 2 weeks to start scheduling, a lot of times it's hard to coordinate. So I always like to plan in advance and get the meeting on the schedule. So other option is if the school says, nope, we did all the evaluations, we're looking at all the data, and we think your child is not eligible. Again, you have 2 options here. You can ask for an independent educational evaluation that you disagree with the outcomes and you want an independent educational evaluation, where the school then has to do, we go back to the same thing, the school has to either authorize an independent educational evaluation or file due process to stand against you, to stand with their evaluation. And then the other thing is to ask for a PWN. Again, school found child not eligible, parents disagree because of XYZ. When you sign the eligibility paperwork, you put that you do not agree with the team, and you can write a dissenting opinion. Why you disagree, why you think your child should be eligible. So from there, again, if you request the IEE, most likely the school is going to give you an independent educational evaluation, because filing for due process is expensive and it's cheaper to just give you the evaluation and then move forward. But you need to know to ask and know how to push it. So preparing for the eligibility meeting. So before you're even coming to that table, it's so important that you review all of the reports. If you don't get the reports before the meeting, you can ask for the meeting to be rescheduled and say, look, I don't have time to review all this, and I can't actively participate in the meeting if I don't have time to review and digest the reports. When you read the reports, some evaluators will put at the end their thoughts on whether your child will be found eligible. Some evaluators don't put anything. They just say the IEP team will review this report and determine eligibility. So again, look through, see what the evaluator is saying, if you agree or disagree, and then go through the report and pull out discrepancies. Pull out, well, wait a minute, this This doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand this. This is telling me there's something different with my child, and there is something going on. And ask those questions at the eligibility meeting to get the clarity to see, is the school right? Or is your child really in need of specialized services? So again, the potential outcomes is the child is eligible or not eligible. And we already went through what you do in those situations. So if your child's found eligible, now it's time for the initial IEP meeting. Again, the 10 days notice before the meeting. 5 days before the meeting, you should get all the draft documents, the IEP, and anything else they might be reviewing. How do you prepare? What do? You get this 35-page, 25-page, however many page IEP thick with mumbo jumbo of words. And what do you do and how do you digest it? So IEP is broken down to 8 different parts. I have on my YouTube channel videos on each individual part, but the basics that you need to focus on is the present levels. That's where is your child? How is your child functioning? That you pull from the report on the academics on each area where your child is functioning. Read it, make sure what the school has there matches the report. Make sure it's detailed enough that you understand, not that it just says the score was 55. What does that mean? What can your child do? What can your child not do? Is your child great at decoding when reading, but fluency isn't as great? Those are the details that go in the present level. Then you look at the accommodation sections and look at the report from the evaluator. What are the recommendations? Are they recommending that your child have fidgets available? Are they recommending that your child has extra time and preferential seating? Most reports will give you this full list of their recommendations of what the school setting should look like for your child and what accommodations should be. Then we get to the goals. And here's where the meat of the IEP is. This is the goals. Now, if the school has done it right, the present levels are telling where your child is struggling, where your child's strengths are. And that's where the goals come from. So if in the present levels, it's saying that your child is great at decoding, but having difficulty with fluency, you want to make sure that there's a reading fluency goal in the goals, because that's the way it flows. And then when you look at the goal, is it a SMART goal? Now, I know Montgomery County is allegedly not using SMART goals anymore, but that's okay. You still want to make sure you understand the goal, that it's specific, that it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, and it's time sensitive. Is your goal something that you understand exactly what your child is going to be able to do at the end of the IEP year? Is this something that's measurable? Do you understand what it's going to look like when the teacher is reporting and measuring progress? Is it that your child will be able to read 20 sight words by the end of the year? Great, that's measurable, that's easy. Right now, your child is reading 3 sight words. We want them reading 20. On the progress reports that you should be getting at least quarterly, it should say progressing. Your child now knows 7 sight words, should be completed by the end of the year. So it's very, very specific and tells you what is going on in the school. And do you understand them? Do you, we went through, like, is it exactly what you understand? Is this what you think your child needs to be successful? Are the goals hitting your child's weaknesses and using your child's strengths to help build up the weakness. So your child has an IEP, found eligible. This is, you know, your child's now in 5th grade, you've had an IEP for lots of years, all is good. But what about reevaluations? So IDEA requires that eligibility is reviewed every 3 years. So if your child was found eligible in 2020, in February of 2020, in February of 2023, there needs to be an eligibility meeting. So before that review of eligibility meeting, before that meeting, at least 4 or 5 months before, the IEP team should be coming together to discuss what evaluations are needed to determine eligibility. Now, a lot of times schools will say, oh, we know the child's eligible, we don't need to evaluate. I don't like that. I think every child needs to be at least academic evaluations to see where the child is. How else are you going to know exactly where your child is and how your child is progressing? Because yes, they have the MAP scores, they have other standardized tests, you have the teacher reports, but those are just snapshots. So getting a formalized test as well gives you more information to truly see the full picture. I never recommend no evaluations. Schools often do that when they realize, oh, oops, it's February of 2023 and we didn't have a pre-meeting, so let's just find the child eligible and not do any evaluations. So again, this is a date as a parent that you want to make sure you calendar on your event, you know, on your calendar in 2 years, go put it in your phone calendar. Don't forget to contact the school to start the process. When it's a reevaluation, the schools have 90 days to come to the table to review the evaluations and look at where your child is and review eligibility again. And then 30 days from that to develop the IEP. Oftentimes with reevaluations, everybody knows the child's going to be found eligible again because circumstances haven't changed that much. So they might do the IEP meeting at the review of the evaluations meeting, which is fine. If we can combine meetings, that works for me. However, make sure they schedule enough time because usually a review of an evaluation meeting can take up to an hour and an IEP meeting can take up to an hour. So if they're only scheduling 45 minutes, there's going to be a problem and you're going to need to reschedule. So just make sure you're communicating with the school on what you want and what you're thinking about. Now, with reevaluations, the law requires that it's looked at every 3 years. However, as a parent, you can request an evaluation at any point in time as long as one hasn't been done in the last 12 months. So if something has changed or it's a transition time for your child, you 100% can request an IEP meeting to discuss additional evaluations. There are certain times that I always recommend doing that if the reevaluation year isn't there. The times you want evaluations are your transition times. So 3rd grade is a big one, although usually where eligibility is, you have a current one. But 3rd grade, I always say is an important one between 2nd and 3rd grade, because that's when curriculum starts getting more serious and more difficult. And a lot of times that's when you see the reading difficulties and the dyslexia coming out, dysgraphia coming out, or math issues coming out, because it's now compounded and more difficult work. So 2nd, 3rd grade is one time I recommend it. The other time is transition time. So your child is moving from elementary school to middle school or junior high, or your child is moving from middle school to high school. Elementary school, middle school, high school. Very different environments. Having a full evaluation will help determine what those environments should look like. And the problem is that elementary, there's different ways that schools are taught. So in elementary school, you're one teacher. You're either regular education or you're special education, or you might have some pullout. And then when you go into middle school, if you're not in a self-contained special education classroom, what are we looking at? Or do you need a co-taught class? Do you need an inclusive class, which is with your regular education students with just some supports? Or do you need a self-contained just for that subject? Without a full evaluation, it's difficult to know what setting would be best for your child. So during those years, make sure you request it. And what's important to know about timelines is summer doesn't toll timelines. Winter break doesn't toll timelines. Timelines are timelines. So if you request an evaluation in June and the school can't say, oh, we'll revisit this in September because it's summer, that's not okay. But that being said, we want to work with the school and be a team, because the goal here is for your child to get the best education possible and to get as many supports as possible. So if you know, sixth grade is coming up, we're moving into seventh grade next, then ask for the evaluation a little bit earlier in the year. Don't wait until May or June. Maybe ask in February or March, because then that gives the school enough time to do the evaluation, come to the table and talk about it. So on the annual IEP review, it's the timeline here that's also important. And this is the parents you should receive every year before the IEP meeting, the letter of invitation, the LOI, 10 days before the meeting. And it should be stating the purpose of the meeting, who's invited to the meeting, the date and time of the meeting. And nowadays, whether it's going to be in person or virtual. Some schools are actually doing in person, most are still staying virtual. When you get the letter of invitation, it's very important to read it, make sure this time works for you or it does not work for you. On the bottom is the checklist of saying, this doesn't work, we would like to reschedule. There's also who you're bringing to the meeting. So if you determine that you want to bring a person of knowledge, an advocate or an attorney, you need to let the school know who you're bringing with them. And at this point, I don't sign and send it back. I would call the school, because a lot of times, oh, they signed it, okay, and they don't actually look at that you're requesting a new date. So it's a quick email or a call to the school to say, hey, I know you wanted to schedule this, but that's not working for me because I have something else going on. Can we look at a different date and time? And again, working as a team, school's going to be, oh, okay, let's look at a different time, because procedural safeguards, you have a right to meaningfully participate in your child's IEP meeting. And if the school is being, nope, you have to have it this day, that's not giving you an opportunity to meaningfully participate. Because if you have something else going on that can't be rescheduled, the school needs to take that into consideration. And again, here we go back to IDEA says reasonable time before the meeting, and COMAR, Maryland law, says the draft IEP should be 5 days before the meeting. Again, there are a lot of times I'll tell the schools, I know we're up against a guideline, as long as I get it 2 days before, I have time to review it and meet with my client, that's fine, depending on what's going on. If things are good with the class and with the school and everybody's on the same page and there hasn't been much friction, I'm definitely, obviously, a little bit easier and more agreeable to waiving some of those restrictions. After the IEP, you should be getting the finalized IEP and your PWN, your prior written notice, 5 days after the meeting. Important to double check, make sure everything's right. A lot of times I'll ask the school to send me the draft IEP before finalizing. just to make sure. And I'll say, hey, we talked about a lot of changes. Can you guys send it to me first so I can review it before finalizing it, just to make sure we're all on the same page? Because the problem is if the school finalizes it, you review the finalized IEP, wait a minute, they missed something here. Now you have to do an amendment, which isn't a big deal, but if you can avoid that step, it's much better. And so the other thing is important is to read the PWN. A lot of times schools just kind of gloss over those and don't put full information. But if there were things that were discussed and the team either agreed or didn't agree, but didn't move forward with it, you want that on the PWN because that's your written record. That's your history of your child. So if you say, hey, we're talking about putting these extra supports, but we decided to try this instead, you want that in the PWN, because if the other thing the team agreed to try didn't work, you want in the PWN that this is what was discussed. So then it's easier to get them to do the first thing that you might have requested. So I've been talking about prior written notice and PWNs. These are part of your procedural safeguards. They must be provided after every meeting, and they must include specific reasons why something was decided to not happen, or why the school denied a request from the parent, or why there was a disagreement and what the parents feel. Always request a PWN. Always, always, always. If you talk about the special education process, if you go and talk to somebody at the school and say, hey, I think there's something going on with my child, I'd like him to be evaluated, and the school says, oh, no, he's getting straight A's, we're not evaluating. Say, okay, can I have a PWN on that? That'll alert the school like, well, wait a minute, this parent knows what they're talking about and knows the legal process. And they might take the step back and start doing things correctly without you having to engage an advocate or an attorney. So procedural safeguards, that's that 35, 37 page book you're supposed to get at every single meeting or before every single meeting. These are your parental rights. You need to know the basics, know what your rights are. Knowledge is power. Knowing what your rights are helps you be the best advocate for your child that you can be. So, in addition to being offered every meeting, it should be offered in a language that you can understand, which, okay, for those of us that are native English speakers, you still can't understand the procedural safeguards sometimes. But that being said, if you're not a native English speaker and you're losing it and the translation isn't working, they need to provide it to you in your language. And you can ask them for it in your language. Montgomery County is pretty good about it. I think they have at least 10, 12 different languages that it's interpreted into in that language. So you just need to ask for it. Oh, and that's the other thing. If you need an interpreter at an IEP meeting, the school needs to provide it in whatever language you feel most comfortable communicating in. So don't be afraid to ask the school, hey, yes, I speak English, but I don't understand the terminology as much. Can we please have it translated? I need a translator there in whatever language it might be. Technically, you are able to ask for an explanation. So when the school hands you the procedural safeguards and says, oh, if you have any questions, just let us know. You can say, can you summarize them for me? It'll kind of get the school to say, what? Because most of them don't even know what it says. They know the basics. There are some schools that, well, but I worked at a school, and then some schools I've been against that have the summary and they'll read it to you. But even better, I have a free one-page summary of the procedural safeguards so that you can use that as a cheat sheet to know your basic rights. So in order to get that summary, you sign up for the educational email series that I have. And it's just 5 emails saying, with educational things about IEP process. It's very helpful information. And the first email should be, welcome, thank you for signing up. Here's the free gift. And there are 4 free downloadables. There's the acronyms. There's a presentation I did on extended school year appropriateness. There's the procedural safeguards, and there's what to look for in IEP goals. So you can then download all of those. So here I have on my slide the link, or even better, if you're not on your phone doing this, I'm not sure how to do it, but there's the QR code that you can go to and will take you directly to the page to sign up for it. I also have several social media pages trying to get information out there. I do a lot of posts. I do a lot of videos. You can see the links. I have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel currently has over 60 videos. Most of the videos are around 3 minutes, talking about different aspects of special education, 504 plans, health plans, anything that has to do with our children with differing abilities. I also have, I do a podcast monthly that I do live that's on my YouTube channel and on all of the podcasts. It's called Stress Free IEP. It's on Apple and Spotify and whatever else is out there. On those podcasts, I interview people that work with the neurodiverse community and just give information that families need. One of the people I interviewed is a neuropsychologist with the school system, and she explained what all those numbers mean in a psychological report so that parents can understand them better going into the meeting. Next, at the end of the month, it's the 4th Tuesday of every month. At the end of July, I'm having a preschool teacher preschool director come on the show to talk about the importance of early intervention and why it's so important that your preschool works with, if you have services already through Montgomery County, that your preschool is part of that IEP team and how they can work together. So here's all of my contact information. My office is in Rockville. It's important to know I am licensed to practice law in Maryland, DC, and Florida. So in those states, I can provide legal services. However, my firm can provide advocacy services nationwide. I've found that there are so many states that don't have education attorneys or advocates that are working and helping families. So I am able to do that, not giving legal advice, but acting as an advocate. I can do that in any state in the United States and even in the American schools overseas. So if you know anybody in the military, I can represent families that are in the American schools overseas because they are required to follow IDEA also. And that brings us to questions, which I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see the chat, because in sharing my screen, I can't see the chat, so I'm not sure if any questions came up. But if you have any questions, if they're not in there, feel free to type them now. Let me know what's going on, thoughts or any issues, or if you have any questions, if I went too fast in an area.
Thank you so much. And I was not able to put in the question in the chat. It might be because I'm a panelist. So I don't know whether other listener or audience will be able to put in a question if they have question. But I do have one right away. When will be a good time that we'll need an advocate or education attorney during this process?
So what I always say is that the earlier the better. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, schools, and I say this also because I was a teacher, and when I was a teacher and a special ed coordinator, I thought I was following the law because that's what I was told. it wasn't always correct. Sometimes it was policy and not actually the law. So it's not that schools are trying to be difficult, but schools don't always know what the right thing to do is and what they should be offering and can be offering. So I always recommend talking to an advocate or an attorney at the very beginning of the process at any point in time to make sure what the school's telling you is right. And my office offers strategy sessions, which is just a 1-hour strategy session, no commitment for anything else, that you can meet with either myself or the advocate to just talk through things. So I always say it's better to contact us sooner. The other issue that happens is that if you wait until it becomes adversarial, you're then in that adversarial position. I'm right, and you're fighting already. Whereas if you bring on an advocate or an attorney beforehand, it allows you to be a team and all of us work together. And having the right advocate or attorney that knows to play as a team, or is working as a team, is very helpful.
Right. So I do agree with you. I mean, thank you so much for the detailed explanation. So in our case, actually, every 3 years, we are, entitled to a re-evaluation. And in our case, the school said, hey, it's obvious that she would need another 3 years. And so they would try to skip that evaluation. I think even though the answer might be obvious, it's still good to have an evaluation so that you have the full picture, right? The full document in hands, just in case you will need that. And
exactly. And you
yes,
can't, it's my thought that you can't develop an IEP if you don't have your baselines. Like, how do you know where your child is? How do you know what your child is doing? If you don't have that in a formalized way, how are you developing goals and objectives that are appropriate?
Mm-hmm. Right. So we get that like one or twice. The school just want to skip that so that they can save some work. So we actually, the parent has to just speak up. No, we need that. Right. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And there's been a lot of times that I've had schools say, oh no, we don't think we need it. So don't. And then parents go and do it through their insurance or pay for it, which yes, you can do, but you shouldn't have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you request a reevaluation on 3rd grade, can we request another one at the end of 5th grade? Yes, 100%. As long as there has not been an evaluation done within 12 months, you can ask for another evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you for that question. Also, I agree with you. We do need to do our homework, really read through the IEP and really follow up with each goal. And I have the impression that MCPS has been very good at responding on our requests. But so we are lucky that we are in a good school. It might not be the same with all the schools that we have.
Correct. And then the other thing, every school is different. I say often that it depends on the principal and the principal's thoughts on special education, on how the special education department works. Because even in Montgomery County, where we're one of the best counties in the state, in the country for special education, there are some schools that don't follow the rules as much. I'm putting the link in the chat to sign up for the email series and to be able to get, just so it's easier for some people potentially to get in and get that. Because again, knowledge is power, and it's so hard. I mean, I don't know if I went into it all, my story of why I do this a lot, but my story is that I didn't think I was smart growing up because I couldn't spell and my grammar wasn't great. So I didn't think I was smart, and I don't want other kids to go through that, because obviously I did okay because I got into law school. I graduated from law school. I was on law review. So I was smart in my own way. I can't spell, and that's okay. There's spell check. And so back when I grew up, special education wasn't as out there as much as it is now. It wasn't as talked about. It was kind of like, no, you don't want special education. So now it's get your child the extra services they need. Let them know they're smart too in their own way, and they just need that extra help.
Right. So what is like, what kind of situation that is typically when people reach out to you for your service?
So the biggest things are around eligibility, or the school not wanting to evaluate eligibility, and then placement when the school is not meeting the child's needs.
Yes.
And my firm, so we, as I said, we do the strategy session. We also can help you at any part of the way. So if you're like, oh, I don't want to be adversarial with the school, we're getting along nicely, but can you help prepare me for the meeting? We're happy to do that. You know, you can schedule the meeting that will review the documents, and we'll basically prepare you for the meeting. You know, we'll write all the notes down for you, and then you can walk into the meeting with all of our notes. So it helps you prepare. The other thing my firm offers now is subscription services, which is basically, it's an annual subscription that you get free quick emails to me of like, hey, the school just said they can't do XYZ. Is that true? And there's a lot of other benefits of being on the subscription service. But if you're interested in that, it's not quite on my website yet, but if you check out my social media, it is out there on my social media. Or you can call my office and talk to my assistant, Shane.
Okay. So if anyone who are in this webinar has any question, please put your question in the chat box. It's valuable time, valuable resource that we have here. And hopefully we can get some of your question answered. So Francis, you talked about I mean, in our survey, when we were asked what people need the most, they all say that they need some support for the IEP meeting. And also many people are interested in the transition phase. So you talk about that too.
So in the transition from, right, I saw that on the request from high school to college, or even to work study program, to whatever it may be. I have some videos on that on my YouTube channel. There are programs that Montgomery County has, and other programs that for work study skills and so forth. There's also on my webpage, I have a resource on my website. I have a page entitled Resources that I list a lot of different people that can help. So there are actually coaches out there that can help you with that transition and help set your child up for success. And there's also coaches that work with your child into college, into work study, into life skills, wherever your child might be. So those are, and there's a video I did on Montgomery County. There's a transition for after high school program that's kind of secret. And if you don't know about it, you don't know about it. And so I found out about it and put it out there so that everybody else can know about it, because it's important for those children that aren't going to college, that need the life skills. There are programs out there.
Well, that's good resource. I mean, we're just dealing with whatever task, I mean, in front of us, but it's I guess many parents just like me, you think about the future, it's a scary thing, right? But to plan ahead, to know what's out there, it's also very important.
And to know, right, exactly. And to know what goals and objectives will help get you to the point where you want your child to be. And the transition part of the IEP, making sure at the age of 14, when they start doing the transition, that it's actually usable stuff. You know, it's not just, we'll look at XYZ. So apparently there's a Q&A that's active also, but I just got a question there. If certain goals have been written in an IEP, but the school did not provide much time on it, do you think it's right, and how is it measured? The school didn't provide much time on it. So if you're saying that the school didn't work on the goal, then no, it's not right. Again, how it's measured, that should be written into the goal. So some of the ways that it can be written into the goal is that it's teacher observations or checklists. those type of things of being able to measure where your child is. I think that's answering it correctly. So like if you're asking how to measure it, that should be in the goal automatically. And here's the thing, your IEP is basically a living document. So if you're going, oh, wow, I just had my IEP meeting 2 months ago and I don't understand these goals and they're not measurable and they don't work, you can ask for another IEP meeting and get it all amended. There's no reason, you don't have to wait until the next year, the annual review. The name of the YouTube. So the YouTube channel is Schefter Law PA. The actual video on the transitions, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up real quick. But it might be called Transitions. I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick. And why is it going into the wrong one? Switch account. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. Videos on the sorry, I'm trying to find it for you and I can't find it real quick, but it's there. It's yeah, I don't know the name of it, but if you go to my YouTube channel, I do have them categorized. You can search for transitions and should be able to find it. Sorry about that. But you should be able to find it relatively easily on my, or also I think I did a blog post on it on my webpage. So that's another place that you can find it as well.
Yes. Or if you, when Francis finished the recording and send it to me, I'm going to share with whoever signed up for this workshop. And maybe you can attach the link to me, right? The information on your social media, then I'll share it with people who sign up for this.
Great. Yeah, at the end of my, when I send it, at the end of my signature block has all of my social media links.
Yes.
So that's it. Are there any other questions?
It's another message.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Okay. Great. Okay.
So thank you all for the opportunity. I'm glad. I hope you found it useful and that you found information that will help you get out there and advocate for your children so that they get the supports they need and they can know they're smart in their own way and achieve their best they can do.
Thanks a lot. And we never know enough of this topic and appreciate taking the time and provide this detailed explanation. I already signed up for the MailChimp, the newsletter, and I'm going to explore everything that you offer.
Great, thank you. So
Okay.
I'm Frances Schefter with Schefter Law PA, where we help families have a stress-free IEP experience. Thank you for attending my webinar.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.